In this episode, we'll create a custom virtual private cloud from scratch. Before we dive into creating our custom VPC, I recommend checking out the official Amazon VPC documentation. It is a great resource to understand the key concepts and best practices which will help you set up your VPC more effectively. After checking out the official Amazon VPC documentation, be sure to check out this website as well. It is a helpful tool for calculating CIDR ranges and managing your IP addresses while you set up your VPC. Next, let me show you the custom VPC diagram I created using this online tool. This will help you visualize the setup we'll be working on and make it easier to understand the structure. We'll implement the VPC diagram you see here, which includes two private subnets in the UST East1B availability zone. We'll also set up two private subnets in the UST East1C availability zone. To designate private subnets in the IPv4 CIDR block, we'll use an even number for the third octet. This helps to differentiate between the private and public subnets more easily. This architecture not only strengthens security but also promotes high availability. By distributing resources across multiple availability zones, we ensure that if one zone experiences an issue, the other can continue to operate, keeping our application and data accessible. In the upcoming episodes, we'll cover all the AWS services you see in this diagram. Now let's jump into the AWS Management Console and navigate to the VPC dashboard to get started. Once we are there, click on your VPCs in the selected region to see the list of VPCs associated with your account. We are going to delete the default VPC. Once you've deleted the default VPC, it is recommended that you go to the subnets, route tables and network ACL sections and click refresh to ensure everything is properly updated. Now let's create our custom VPC. We'll click on Create VPC. We'll give the VPC a name. Then you'll need to enter the IPv4 CIDR block for the VPC. we'll click on Create VPC. Now that we've successfully created our custom VPC, let's move on to creating our private subnets. To create our first private subnet, we'll navigate to the VPC dashboard and click on Subnets. Then we'll click on Create Subnet. In the configuration window, we'll select our custom VPC from the drop-down. We'll give the subnet a name. Next, choose the zone in which your subnet will reside. US East 1B. Then you'll need to enter the IPv4 CIDR block for the subnet. After that, to create the remaining subnets, click on Add New Subnet and repeat the same process for each one. We'll click on Create Subnet. You can see that in this subnet we have 251 available IPv4 addresses because according to the official Amazon VPC documentation, the first 4 IP addresses and the last IP address in each subnet CIDR block are not available for your use and they cannot be assigned to a resource such as an EC2 instance. Once we have our private subnets set up, we'll create route tables for each subnet. Route tables allow us to specify how traffic is directed in and out of our subnets. Let's start by navigating to the route tables section in the VPC dashboard and click on Create Route Table. We'll give it the name and associate it with our custom VPC. We'll click on Create Root Table. We'll repeat this process for each private subnet, ensuring that each has its own dedicated root table. This will give us granular control over the routing behavior of our resources. Once root tables are created, select a root table, click on Subnet Associations, and choose Edit Subnet Associations. From here, you can select the subnet you want to associate with the root table. Choose the appropriate subnet from the list. We'll click on Save Associations. This process will be repeated for each root table. Next, we'll enhance our security by creating network access control lists (NACLs) for each subnet. NACLs provide an additional layer of security at the subnet level, allowing us to control inbound and outbound traffic. To create a NACL, we'll navigate to the Network ACL section in the VPC dashboard. And click on Create Network ACL. We'll give it the name and associate it with our custom VPC. We'll click on Create Network ACL. We'll repeat this process for each NACL. Once NACLs are created, select a NACL, click on Subnet Associations and choose Edit Subnet Associations. From here you can select the subnet you want to associate with the NACL. Choose the appropriate subnet from the list. Click on Save Changes. This process will be repeated for each NACL. With our network access control lists in place, we strengthened the security of our custom VPC. This setup ensures that only the intended traffic can enter or leave our private subnets. To understand the architecture of the VPC, be sure to check out the VPC resource map. In the next episode, we will launch an Amazon EC2 instance.